Chapters 13 and 14 discuss the topic of what is commonly called leprosy. The exact Hebrew word, however, tzara'at, is used over 20 times in these two passages alone. The word is used to describe an infectious skin disease. In most cases, the skin disease renders the inflicted person tameh, that is, ritually impure. They become a tumah. The instructions given to the priests is to examine the individual, and if found unclean, they were to leave the commonwealth of the camp. You can reference verses 45 and 46. An interesting side note to this pronouncement is that anyone coming in contact with the unclean was himself rendered unclean. That is to say, tumah can be spread between individuals, which is exactly why someone contracting the disease known as tzara'at was to be put out of the camp, lest he inflict or infect anyone else. Similarly, this type of disease, if chronic, was seldom, if ever, completely healed. There are isolated incidents, individuals such as Naaman in our Haftarah portion of 1 Kings 4, verses 42 through chapter 5, verse 19, that were completely and miraculously healed. But the overall picture is bleak as far as anyone contracting this disease becoming completely healed. And the reason is because the Torah doesn't provide a healing remedy. It merely provides prescriptionary measures for those who had contracted tzara'at and what to do if they contracted it, and how and when to see the priest to see if the skin disease has cleared up. Yet one of the signs among many signs that was said to follow the genuine promised Messiah, remember how I talked about that one of the signs was that tumah would flee from him? Well, another one of the signs was that the healing of tzara'at would come from the Messiah, and that would be one of the signs that he was the genuine article and not a phony. You can read Matthew 11, 2 through 6, as well as Matthew 12, 22 and 23, and John 9, verses 1 through 41, and you can see where Yeshua is healing people with leprosy, that he's actually demonstrating his authenticity by healing people who were otherwise in a place where they couldn't be healed. Why wouldn't the uncleanness of the afflicted render the Messiah unclean? That's a good question. Obviously we answer because he's Messiah, right? Because he has no uncleanness in him. Therefore all sin has to flee from him. All tumah has to flee from him. The proof that the coming Messiah was a genuine and not a phony was demonstrated not only that he would heal the afflicted individual, okay, as opposed to the priest just pronouncing him clean or unclean, but not giving any, being allowed to take any credit for doing the healing, but that he himself would not become defiled. All right, even in the case with the high priest, he had to be careful not to become defiled himself when he's pronouncing the state of tumah or tahara. In Yeshua's example, however, given in Matthew 8, verses 1 through 4, our Lord instructed the former leper, the one he just healed, to go to the Kohen, to the priest, as a testimony unto them. A testimony of what? This was done for at least two reasons, at least I see it. Number one, Yeshua instructed the leper, the former leper, to go to the Kohanim for two reasons. Number one, in obedience to the very mitzvah found in our current parasha. Remember, Yeshua was Torah compliant. This vindicates Yeshua's adherence to the Torah of Moshe. Far from being a law breaker, Yeshua complied with the Torah of Moshe. We've got to get this notion out of our head that Jesus came to uproot the Torah. He did not come to uproot the Torah and to render it useless or void. He came to properly establish and explain the Torah of Moshe because it was grossly misinterpreted and distorted in the first century. I might add, it is grossly misinterpreted and distorted in the 21st century, but that's a different lesson. My point in bringing this out is that Yeshua is not going to heal someone and then just tell them go on their merry way. Yeshua knew the Torah, and Yeshua also was aware that if a person who had leprosy or tzara'at was healed, then he was to go to the priest and show himself to the priest. So that's reason number one. And number two, the reason he sent the leper on his way, or the former leper on his way, was to authenticate the miracle. All right? Witnesses authenticate the genuine miracle, thus proving its claims to messiahship. Isn't that wonderful? Yeshua knew the rumors. There's nothing in the Torah that says that when the Messiah comes, that Tumah is going to flee from him. This was just a commonly held belief that the first century Judaisms were teaching among their adherents. And God, being Yeshua himself, knew, or Yeshua being God himself, knew this rumor, or knew this clever saying, this oral tradition, as it were. And so Yeshua thought, hey, I'm going to go ahead and step into this tradition and prove my messiahship by authenticating the miracle, a miracle that otherwise could not take place. Remember, there are no reported incidences of people with leprosy being healed in the Tanakh. Again, Naaman is a welcomed exception. But other than that, it took a miracle, is my point. All right, the priest couldn't do it. God had to heal the person with tzara'at. In every single instance where Yeshua healed the afflicted or raised the dead, his holiness did not decrease. His state of clean never diminished. On the contrary, disease and death always fled from his presence. Surely Yeshua was the Messiah for those days, and using a Kal Vachomer argument, surely he is the Messiah for us today. Only he can provide the genuine healing. Yes, we, his disciples, his shluchim, his sent ones, his talmidim, his students, we are his hands and his feet, but the healing comes from him.